Hey, Susannah here. We are going to be talking how to prevent people ripping you off in a joint venture partnership today, because people are going to try. They are. There's just no point pretending they're not. But first, I want to say hi and tell you where I am. I am literally on the steps of where Rocky did his famous run up, and down there's a statue. So everybody, woohoo! I hope you feel as pumped, as excited and as determined to get going in property as that Rocky film. And if not, maybe you could start humming the theme tune to yourself. Oh, there you go. Da, da, da. And just put in that consistent training ready to get going in property. Now, why the steps are all colored is because they're just ready for the Thanksgiving parade. I'm here in America. I do a lot of traveling these days. I'm here in America because my sister and brother-in-law live in New York, in Brooklyn, and I'm going to jump on the train later on and go and spend Thanksgiving with them. But first, I wanted to do some video for you guys, because how did I get here to the point of financial freedom? Well, I got here because I did joint ventures. I got here because I worked with JV partners. I did buy to sell flips. I think we did over 40 in total of JV partners, roughly. And generally they were successful. Okay, so the first 42 we did, we sold for £402,000 on average, more than expected. However, I always say this because it's really important you know this, that 1 in 5 sold for less than expected. Now that may be okay if it's just you, but when it's you and a JV partner, you need to let them know this. You also need to have them qualify PS 13.3, because it's a variable opportunity. So for somebody that's only got a tiny bit of money, they're just not qualified to be a JV partner. So that's kind of your responsibilities. But today we're going to be talking about some of the ways pesky joint venture partners tried to rip me off. I'm not going to say full names because that's unfair, but let me tell you the situation, what we did about it, so that before anyone ever tries to do this to you, you've got preventative steps in place. And when they do try to do it to you, you're like, oh yeah, that video when she was like, Rocky, okay, that's what I'm going to remember. So let's start with the JV partner who signed the contract and agreed to buy the property. So the way I always do JV partnerships is the JV partner buys the property. We find the property, we find the property, and then what we do is discounted. We create a deal report, like about a 10-page deal report, to assess and evaluate the property, do lots of comparables, because you're doing a serious piece of work here. Let's do it properly. And then we put it in with the right JV partner. We agree terms, we sign the joint venture legal agreement, they own the property and they fund the refund. Yep, he's doing a Rocky. So that sounds good, doesn't it? So first situation, JV partner bought the property. This one is less a rip-off as a screw-up on the investor's part. Bought the property, we were going to buy and sell it, we were both going to make a lot of money on it, and after he bought the property, he phoned me up and he went, he didn't say I'd made a mistake, he just said, we didn't even say he got his funding wrong. He said, I'm not going to make any money on this. And I'm like, what? I think we're going to make like 100 grand between us or something. This is like 10, 15 years ago. I'm not going to make any money on this. I'm like, how? His name was Andy. How are you not going to make money on this? Like, there's 100 grand in it between the two of us. And it turned out he'd done some crazy ass funding, crazy cost. He owned a block of flats elsewhere. He had refinanced all those flats to pull the cash out. So he was paying bridging interest on the entire cost of everything. And although he'd still made some money, he wasn't going to make a lot of money. Well, if I'm blunt and frank about it, that's entirely his responsibility. He was older than me and I was a grown up with 2 kids. So he was a grown man, should have figured out his money in advance. He got quite belligerent. He didn't go, oh, I'm sorry, I've screwed up. He got quite belligerent. And so in the end, I was like, and I'd done deals with him before, so I was very surprised. However, I was like, okay, privately, this is very annoying, because my cash flow predicted I was going to receive X amount of cash in X amount of time, like 6 months' time for the flip. And of course, I was in the buying stage. And if you're in the buying stage, you got no cash. You're always trying to make extra cash because all your money goes into buying properties. So I was like, okay, I tell you what, I'll buy the property from you. He was very difficult about it, because remember, they buy it in the first place, and I ended up paying both his stamp duty and my stamp duty, because my argument was like, I'm not paying you stamp duty, so you screwed up. But he just got so difficult, I just thought, go away. you know, to be quite frank with you. And I never worked with them again. So that was more screw up than a rip off, but it cost me double stamp duty. And at the time I was extremely annoyed because my position was very low cash flow, which of course is why I was doing joint ventures. If I'd had good cash flow, I wouldn't have needed the guy in the first place. So I solved the problem, said, look, with respect, I'm not going to work with you again because you're not reliable. Good luck to you. Didn't end particularly well, but at least, you know, it was terminated. So you're going to have investors who make mistakes. Another one, again, mistake. I literally was about to buy a joint venture partnership with two brothers. The property was worth 180,000. We were buying it for 180,000, but there was planning permission in the garden for a block of 6 flats. It's a big garden. So they're doing all the rocky things. So at that point, it wasn't the house that was profitable, it was the garden. We're going to split title, sell that, job done. And we're buying it pre-auction at 330. I remember extremely well because, you know, these are not like now. If somebody pulled out a deal, I'd be like, no problem, I've got money. Then I didn't have a bean. You know, I was doing JVs to earn money. So you're really tight against it. And so investors being incompetent or not the man or woman of their word really impacts on you. So at 3:30 they phoned me up. I was literally about to step on a plane to go up to Glasgow to see my parents to say, actually we're pulling out. What? So I decided to use, I did have a tiny bit of money myself. I decided to use 18 grand of my own money to do the exchange. And then I knew I had 28 days to raise money from investors to do the completion. So, you know, investors will let you down at the last minute. Not many of them, but occasionally they will. So you decide, are you going to proceed with the deal? In both cases, I proceeded with the deal. In both cases, it worked out brilliantly. The first deal I kept. It's still an HMO now. It brings in over 3 grand a month in rent. It's gone up by like £250,000 in value. And the bitter, salty wound of having to pay double stamp duty to get rid of this incompetent investor, if I'm blunt about it, has just dissolved. The second one, I split title, I sold the land, I sold the house, and I made good money. So again, that slightly bitter feeling of being let down, it's just dissolved. You know, they lost a good deal. So you will have investors who mess up. Next, you'll have investors who try it on. And they'll try it in a number of different ways. So one guy, Demetrius, I won't say obviously his second name, he was going to do a joint venture, so again it goes in his name, and his only job was to fund the purchase of the property, which he did. Great, well done him. And then his second job is to fund the refurb. And because of previous experience of investors drying up halfway through a refurb, I never start the refurb until all the investors' money is in the bank. No dummy me. I have a fixed price contract with the builder. We know exactly how much the refurb's going to be, so nobody's going to get any surprises, or not usually. And I don't start the refurb. So he bought the deal, and then he phoned me up and went, turns out I don't have any money for the refurb, so you'll have to fund that. No, because again, if I had the money and was planning to do it myself, I would have done it myself and taken 100% of the profit. The only reason, I mean this with kindness, the only reason to joint venture with somebody and give away 50% of your profit, it's because you don't have the capital to make it happen in the first place. So at no point do you accept, oh sure, I'll fund the refurb, despite our contract saying that you will. So how I dealt with that, and I learned this technique from tenants. Obviously there's the pleasure point of, you know, let's just be nice human beings. But when that doesn't work with tenants, then you add in the pain point. Then you say, well, look, you know, you need to tidy up and clean up before your inspection, because otherwise we're going to have to pay, and usually a cleaning cost is around £350, and I don't want you to be paying that cleaning cost. So I just used that same technique on him. I was extremely irritated, and by that I mean extremely. I think I had to go for a walk. A lot. Anyway, so I just said, I'm terribly sorry to hear that, but you are paying bridging, and it's over £1,000 a month. And obviously, as per the terms of our contract, we don't start work until all of the renovation money is in the bank. So under the terms of our contract, you know, it pains me to say this, but we won't be able to start work, and you'll just be paying months extras of bridging until you can pull the money together as per our contract. So it will cost you about £1,000 a month for this delay, Demetrius. So I wonder how you might be able to solve that problem. He solved that problem within 2 hours. He was just trying it on. Third way that people are going to rip you off is they're going to part pay for refurb. And we had that as well. A lady called Amanda. After signing the joint venture agreement with her, again, remember, it goes into their name, they buy the project, they pay for the refurb, and then we start work. This was a plot of land, and we were going to build a house on it. After buying the plot of land, signing the contract with us, we put a restriction on it. We were actually building a house, and we had a certain budget for the house, and she put half of the money across. No. You need to put all of the money across, because we've had you cannot be funding a JV partner as part of the contract. And at that point, I did some inquiry, and she had done this to multiple other people in our industry in different ways. She was really quietly well known in the network as, well, I would call it rip-off. So I held firm, and I said, look, we're both going to make a lot of money in this project, so you need to uphold your part of the bargain. I will not start this, and it was actually building a house, so you're definitely not going to build a house until, look, everyone's doing the rocky thing, until the money's across. On this one, to be honest with you, I didn't want to lose the profit. It was a huge profit for both parties, and we didn't do anything incorrect our end, so I wasn't up for, I wasn't particularly excited to work with the woman, but I wasn't prepared in the short term to lose the profit, because we found an amazing deal. She now owned it. She just needed to put the money across. She dragged it for 9 months, which was really stupid on her part, if I'm blunt with you, because she's paying, she put the cash across to own this site, which now wasn't being developed, and planning was ticking away. And in the end, I just thought, you know what, you're a nightmare to work with. And I withdrew from the contract, refunded the part payment she gave us. And I actually watched that house get developed, and it took her 4 years to develop it. And when somebody develops a house and you can tell they've run out of cash just in small things like the light fittings and things, which are often at the end, and she didn't make very good money. So again, it's like, we were prompt, primed, ready, contracted with builders. We knew what we were doing, but she was trying. If I hadn't known that she had a reputation in the industry, I would have thought she just ran out of money. But she had a reputation for doing this, so nah, not up for it. So again, it was kind of, all she had to do was hand the cash over and sit back and then enjoy the profit. So far, I've had 2 that I took over from investors. I've had 1 that I stood back and held firm, and the investor solved the problem in 2 hours, finding the money, and that went ahead, and then I just didn't work with them again. And then I've had 1 that I held firm for months, held the part payment she put in the bank, and went, no, I don't start until you complete your contract, which is put all the money across. And then eventually went, she's too big of a nightmare to work with, and so she proceeded on that one and didn't make very much money. It took years to do it. And then the other way that they're going to try and rip you off, we had a guy called Andrew. Now this was a real shame. We did an amazing project. I won't name it because then you'll be able to identify him. Again, it was 2 flats. It was a really fast refurb in and out, like $6.5 grand and $8 grand in and out. We made something like, was that 140 to 160? I forget the exact money, but it was about 140 to 160 grand for like 3 weeks work. And the reason there was so much profit in it was we'd sourced it really well. It was a tired landlord, selling very cheap. We split title. We did a very quick, turned it out and put it on the market again. So huge amount of money for very little time, if you like. And Andrew had funded it. He'd funded the refurb. Everything was ticking along nicely. What you do in a joint venture is you put in photos, you put in receipts to the Dropbox, so that that it's all very transparent. And then we came to point of sale, and Andrew phoned me. I remember this clearly. Again, I was very cross. Andrew phoned me and said, well, obviously, Susannah, everyone's doing the rocky thing. Obviously, Susannah, I can't pay you yet your profit because there's still like the council tax and the water and gas and electricity to pay. So we don't know the exact amount of your profit. So I'm not going to pay you. And it was very clear to me that Andrew's delaying tactics were a probing test of boundaries to see if he ever needed to pay. That's certainly how I took it. So we had this very polite, measured, with power conversation where I said, look, there's always a balancing payment at the end. There's always like a £500 balancing payment, Andrew, where we need to get the final gas, electricity, council tax and water rates bill. We always have that payment in our favour because we've got a bookkeeper who does all the admin and work for us, and then we refund you the £150 difference at the end. That's always part of our contract, Andrew, so don't worry about it, that's not a problem. And he tried everything to delay payment. And the thing is, the JV partner needs you when you find the deal. They need you when you manage the refurb. But maybe they then start looking at that 140 or 160 grand profit and they go, well, I wonder if I could just keep it all. You know, they're human, but the majority of decent JV partners don't then act on that. And this chap had decided to see if he could tick that box. No. So we had very polite conversations, which was this, you know, we cannot release. It's called an RX1. It's a restriction on the flat. So although you've got a legal agreement, if they broke the legal agreement, you'd have to go to court to get your money back, and then that would cost you money and you know, palaver. Whereas we put a restriction, an RX1 on the property, so it prevents the property from being sold, refinanced by the investor, because remember the investor owns the property. And so I was like, Andrew, I'm terribly sorry, and I completely see that we've got this little balance in payment, but we always do it in our favour and then we refund you the final balance. But I just used a third-party blame. I was like, my finance director won't allow me to release the RX1 and thereby authorise the sale until I have it in writing from your lawyer that you'll be releasing our invoiced profit this afternoon. Terribly sorry, but he's just that way. I didn't even discuss it with the finance director. I was fuming. But you sometimes, in a tricky discussion with somebody who's been a bit of a doofball, you need this third-party person to blame. I was like, he's officious, you know, and then you're kind of working together, even though you're thinking you rip off merch and get out of my sight, in order to satisfy the third-party fictional or non-fictional officious person. So Andrew saw that he was cornered, and I was like, what I would hate to happen, Andrew, is that this buyer actually drops out. I mean, that would be a real shame. We've got an amazing profit here. I can't remember the profit. It was like 140, 160 or something, I can't remember. We've got an amazing profit here. It's ours for the taking this afternoon, and it would be a real shame if just a little piece of admin wasn't done. So you notice I'm minimising. I'm not saying, Andrew, you're trying to rip me off here, although I felt very strongly he was. I was minimising. Just this little piece of admin wasn't done. I'm afraid I'm just unable or not allowed to sign the release of the RX1, which is called an RX4. So in each of those situations, problems were solved. Sometimes they cost me cash flow, sometimes they cost me some money. But in the end, the long-term solution was good. One deal I just stepped back because the woman was too much of a nightmare. And sometimes you need to know when to fold and leave, put your cards on the table and leave. And you don't want to work with an absolute nightmare JV partner. Now, I think on that one, that was building a house. If it had been like a 20 grand refurb, I'd have stuck to my guns. But I just thought building a house can be more risky. You want to be shoulder to shoulder with a great partner on building a house. And if she's unable to even do the basics, if ever anything goes wrong on building a house, she's just not the right partner. Whereas you could kind of like set her off on one side if you're doing like a 20 grand refurb. And then the legal stuff solved the other one, the flats, where there was a huge amount of profit for very little work because we were great at deal sourcing. And he grudgingly released put it in writing with the lawyer and released the money. So what's my conclusion? Don't take it personally. I find 2% of tenants are a nightmare and 2% of investors are a nightmare. That's just the maths. So if you do a lot of deals like I did, 2% of those deals is going to be the investors that drive you nuts. And so you need to kind of keep your calm, make sure you've got your paperwork in place, find solutions where the investors royally screwed it up, withdraw and fold your cards where it's just too much of a nightmare and it's not financially worth it, but insist on getting paid where you've done a good job and you deserve the money. Yeah? I don't want you to get frightened about working investors. It's only 2%. They're war stories. You can tell them while talking on the steps of the Rocky Monument, can't you? Well, it's the Philadelphia Art Museum, but this is where Rocky did his steps. So I want you to proceed, but just proceed with caution. Yeah? So remember, like and subscribe for the YouTube channel, and also have a right good look at my website. It is called thegoodpropertycompany.co.uk. The exact joint venture agreement I just told you about is on there. It cost me over £2 from my lawyers. You can download it. The exact deal package agreement that we use to do over 200 deals is on there. It cost me over £2 from my lawyer. You can download it. I've got amazing deal sourcing, deal packaging academies, flipping academies, how to find investor academies, webinars, checklists. I prepared it all for you so that you can learn property and I can run around doing the Rocky. So good luck to you. You can do this. All right, if you want to know more about raising private finance, over here you can click on and download immediately my fundraising pack. It is stacked full of everything I use to raise millions of pounds. Well worth downloading now.